Hey, well here we go. Finally, we are blessed with the eagerly awaited trailer for the Fede Alvarez Alien Romulus, which is making its way to cinemas in August. It's been extremely tricky to assess what quality of film we are receiving just based on the loose information and only a teaser trailer thus far. Thankfully, we now have more footage to analyse. Let's see if it gives us a better understanding of what kind of standards have been set for the film, and more importantly, what level of maturity Romulus will instill upon us in terms of story, acting and suspense. Long gone are the days of true audience terror like during the 1979 Alien openings, but I am expecting a good amount of tension and well-crafted jump scares come August. So let's raise our glasses to the perfect organism whose structural perfection is matched only by its hostility, and break it down scene by scene. These are my initial reactions, feelings and comparisons to the legacy that came before. We begin with something strikingly reminiscent of Blade Runner, and you know what? It's hard to articulate what is so attractive about observing rain on glass at night that elevates a certain romanticism in films. But whatever it is, it seems to convey the beauty of nature and emotion extremely well in cinema. It was almost a character in and of itself in Blade Runner, and its influence reaches far, even to Romulus. So inevitably we were always going to start with some essence of backstory as to who the crew are and where they come from. Therefore, in terms of world building and making Romulus feel real and lived in, this opening shot is hauntingly beautiful because not only does it provide a well needed bridge to the existing franchise, with deep-rooted familiarities such as the majestically looming atmospheric processing plant, but I also feel a justifying sense of an authentic world both in its hostile appearance and isolation. No pun intended for all you gamers out there. I would guess that this Wayland plant is not fully decommissioned, if at all, by the immense display of active lights that may suggest heavy activity and personnel within this large compound. I'd also assume that it would be required to continue its function of converting toxic particles into breathing air, especially if this planet is as barren as it sounds from its harsh industrial description. Another wonderful yet partial view here of the processing plant, which reminds me more than anything of some of the early scenes in Alien 3, probably because of the dark and stormy backdrop to the forebodingly recognisable architecture dominating the forefront. As we transition to the incredible vista of the planetary surface, the trailer makes it very clear how desperate the crew on board the shuttle are to leave their past behind for a happier future, and where else would better serve that dream than an abandoned Weyland-Yutani research station filled with xenomorph experiments gone awry, the perfect getaway. Alternatively folks, LV-426 may be more desirable if looking for a more permanent solution and an exciting place to raise a new family. Well, those sinister looking air vent locks have finally made their return folks, and I'm starting to think that no details will be spared in Romulus. Let's just hope that everything serves an integral purpose to the story rather than just existing for nostalgic reasons. You catch my drift? Maybe this could also be a metaphor for the opening of an exceptionally fatal can of worms for the salvaging crew, as they are about to find out. What is very clear from these initial shots is that the team appear to have boarded the Remus part of the station as opposed to Romulus. This is very evident from much of the interior design and layout of electronic equipment and wall panelling, as it matches the aesthetics from Ridley Scott's Alien down to a T. I want to say it gives me a warm feeling to see this again, but it always seems to come with a price, doesn't it? People die. The Alien Isolation game was the last franchise installment that articulated these aspects so masterfully, and things didn't turn out so well there either, did it? It may also interest you to know that Fede Alvarez in a recent Q&A spoke on how it pretty much was the Isolation game that inspired him to make this film in the first place. He said that while playing it he realised he needed to turn this story into a movie, which I'm sure nobody will argue is a bad idea. The link to the Q&A is in the description below, which will take you to Mike Monster's channel. Please check it out. Now, would you agree with me that we have rather quickly transitioned to the Romulus section of the station, as the architecture that has suddenly materialised here feels much more in line with the futuristic tech of James Cameron's Aliens from 1986. Although more polished and pleasing to look at than the Remus module, it remains gritty enough to retain those alien values, unlike the more sterile and clinical style that was more dominant in Prometheus. Now we're talking. This is not your ordinary structural damage due to a burst water main and left to dilapidate. Oh no, in Ripley's words, a creature that gestates inside a human host and has concentrated acid for blood must have met its end here. I mean, this is unequivocally a real throwback to the harrowing and suspenseful early scenes in Aliens where the colonial marines were investigating the evidence of a struggle at Hadley's Hope. The other obvious comparison one could make is just how much the marines had no idea what they were getting into. This naive group of explorers are also none the wiser as to the imminent danger on board this station. But how will they handle it, I wonder, without any training or experience?
I feel safer already.
This is interesting because I don't know exactly what I'm looking at here. Many things in this trailer are undoubtedly designed to spark some memories for those of us old enough to have grown up with these films, but this blue light can only be one of two things, unless it is simply a blue light from a distant source. Imagine that. It reminds me heavily of the stasis field on board the derelict alien craft that when disturbed would cease to function, as Kane found out before his demise. The only reason I suggest this is because of the way we see Andy the android gently place his hand in position of the beam, and then we hear a high-pitched frequency in response. The sound may just be a trick of the trailer designed to throw us off, but it has me thinking regardless. The only other explanation as to what this could be is perhaps a form of laser scanning, eerily similar to what the salvaging team were equipped with in Aliens when searching Ripley's shuttle. Only here it would have to be a smaller and more portable device, so that the group can carry it with them whilst exploring the station. The same blue light was fairly prominent in a recent image a few weeks back. If it is a stasis field similar to what I can only assume was created by the ancient species that built the derelict ship which crash-landed on LV-426, then this opens up many more questions as how this technology made its way here, unless it was invented by the Wayland Science Division for the same purpose. Speaking of science, we could be looking at a window into the Romulus lab here as the glass is internally reinforced, evident by the mesh pattern visible throughout. Although there is a strong indication of the type of experiments that went down here, I would love it if we got to see some archived recordings discovered by the crew of what exactly happened. I don't want to see holograms or flashbacks. It would be more fitting if the crew hacked into files that could be viewed on grainy monitors for old time's sake with a little dash of authenticity. Again, this feels more alien than alien at this point. There are so many franchise visual and audible cues on show here condensed in just 2 minutes of footage. For better or worse, it is pure nostalgia mixed with the excitement of something new. We have the highly recognisable and intimate noise of the motion tracker pulsate in a way that seems to be timed at intervals, with the ever-increasing sound of something trying to escape, and escape it will. Well, it certainly brings a new definition to the word ultrasound, doesn't it? There have been chestburster moments on film that sadly diminish the horror of what it truthfully entails, like the AVP films. But when done right, this is the one thing in the franchise that truly makes me squirm. Trying to imagine the intense pain of being torn apart from the inside is overwhelming, and from what I've heard in interviews, Romulus does not shy away from exploring the frightening realities of such an occurrence. I can't imagine that Fede Alvarez will have the patience to prolong the agony and suspense of the process to the lengths we were privy to in Alien, but at the very least it will be a most gory and violent ride, I'm sure of it.
Anyway, where are we?
Much like how the resulting film is said to be in 2 parts, the first half mimicking the methodic slow burn of Alien, and then seamlessly transitioning into the action horror of Aliens. The trailer now begins to up the tempo once we are inside the lab. Apparently we are witnessing some kind of facehugger water birth, or alien hydrotherapy, happening as, for the first time seen on film, these carefully placed eggs begin to hatch underwater. The way they escape their pods and instantly become pure instinct is quite tantalising, I'll admit. The problem so far for me is that, although I love what I'm seeing, especially as I start to realise how much I miss these alien encounters that have all been created only with practical effects, thank goodness, we'd need more of that, please. The issue is, and the one thing that could ruin the film for me, I don't know if any of these scenes and plot devices are simply there for nostalgia-related convenience, or whether they have a solid purpose and serve effectively in the story. Hopefully it's the latter and we get a mature script with rich characters to enjoy whilst we gorge our eyes on some pure visceral carnage as an alien film should be. That's all I ask. But I have to admit that there are an awful lot of shots that certainly don't feel like a copy per se, but rather an extension of iconic scenes we've already lived through many times, right?
There's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know, there's just something in the fucking water.
I'm not gonna lie folks, and I am enjoying this trailer so far, but that line and its delivery kind of took me out of the trailer just a little bit. It didn't feel very cinematic, shall we say. Unfortunately, it does reinforce my belief that until I watch the movie, my main concern will continue to be the performances. Not much else about this trailer demonstrates any noticeable weaknesses, I am pleased to say. However, you tell me, am I being too harsh on some of the cast, or is it warranted? Now this is very awkward to watch, isn't it? I'll try to say this without laughing. The proboscis, I believe we can call it, the part that is used to impregnate its victim, has honestly never been more disturbing than what is being shown in this small clip. Apologies. I would love to know how they filmed it and if there's a blooper reel. I'm looking forward to that just as much as the movie. But he'll get the hang of it eventually, I'm sure. It's always tricky on the first time as you're slightly unsure where to put it, but it's the effort that counts, buddy, so hang in there. I have to say I'm fascinated by the motion of this unravelling of a curled up hand that this particular Xeno is capable of. It's a new reveal and a nice touch. It's a very different design than what we're used to, however, and is giving me a strong vibe that we are potentially going to see a more agile Xeno, or at least we are going to witness more agility performed by these creatures, resulting from better technology used in filmmaking these days for practical effects. This clip is great because there is still an emphasis on the long creepy fingers we all know so well, mixed with a subtle and retractable claw representation here, which I suppose could suggest a new variation of Xeno, possibly. It's unlikely to be a queen, I would say, because if you remember, the queen specimen had incredibly oversized hands that was quite a prominent feature in much the same way its overbearingly majestic dome took precedence visually over everything else. Still, some food for thought until it all becomes clear in August. We are being shown, if very briefly, more and more images of this secreted resin that closely resembles the hive walls created by the drones in Aliens, as well as the big chap's interior decorating skills within the deleted scenes of Alien. The question on many people's lips seems to be, will there be a queen? I guess that's what you guys want then, right? Whether it relates to the hive walls or not, I do suspect that we might see some kind of apex version of your basic Xeno, judging by many of the subtle variations scattered in the trailer, as well as the undeniable evidence of lab experiments on board the station. It may be that it becomes something akin to a dominant alpha among the number of aliens on board, as it is also pretty evident that we will see more than one grown xenomorph. Can you guess which of the previous films that this scene reminds me of? I'll give you a clue, it wasn't the first two. Quite a nice steamy shot of at least one fully grown Xeno, and this one almost perfectly matches the large smooth dome of Big Chap in the original film. So either the rumours are true of his return via company retrieval, or it may just be the case that Fede has chosen this particular design for the beast in Romulus. And guys, this is very Aliens with Newt, wouldn't you agree? The set has remained very consistent in the quality of old and new. It visually describes areas of dilapidation and also abandonment in quite a hurry. It looks believable enough to have been lived in once, and I continue to be impressed with the sets and construction of it all. I also don't have any fears when it comes to Isabella Merced. She is a good actress based on what I've seen her in, that's just my 2 cents anyways. This part is strange. I suspect we're being thrown off course here once more, another visual trick designed to mislead us. My initial reaction is this is just a rock, but my common sense tells me why would an asteroid be floating so slowly, so close to the station and the planet's orbit? I mean, it does look like an egg or some kind of alien cocoon, sort of. It has the same texture to it as it flies through the hangar whilst getting scanned. Interesting. Then again, maybe it's not an airlock at all, and we could be viewing something much smaller taking place inside the lab, as weird as that is to say. They have definitely got the atmosphere right, haven't they? In terms of set design and the smoke and particles in the air. Well, this is one hell of a spoiler, wouldn't you say? The fate of Romulus Station is revealed, ladies and gentlemen. It still leaves you with many questions though. Like, what is this humongous chunk of ice that the large research station has plummeted into? It can only be a small moon, surely. I would think that Mother probably gets bored with self-destruction by now, and maybe she wanted something a bit more kinetic perhaps. Still, it's great to see they have splashed out with some decent CGI as well as practical. So, we end the trailer with a few more snippets of the main reason we are going to be watching this film. I speak of the creature that came from H.R. Giger's wonderfully disturbing imagination. The character Rain is using some form of early pulse rifle, no doubt, but it doesn't appear to have done as much damage as what the 10mm explosive tip caseless rounds were able to achieve in Aliens. We see sparks and then some smoke effects for sure, but nothing like the explosive power of what the Marines were equipped with. Therefore maybe the ammo used here is inferior as well as the weapon itself. If so, this would make a nice handicap against these horrifying creatures that might serve the movie better. But regardless of that, it is a mesmerising shot that furthermore makes me wonder what the beast is reaching down for at the bottom of the screen here. Is that another person? Is Rain trying to protect someone or something? It's very hard to tell, but it is clearly moving, whatever it is. Now, what the hell is this, I wonder? If this is an egg releasing something larger with already formed hands and a dome-shaped head about to pop out, then this could have great meaning. For anyone that doesn't know, Giger's first design of the alien egg only had one slit across the top of it. The studio of course made him change it as they feared the shape would look too vaginal and might upset audiences at the time. Therefore Giger was tasked with altering the design, and he chose a cross instead. To his delight, he would later describe how he believed the last laugh was his, because now the egg with its two slits was doubly vaginal, of course. Another wonderful insight into the mind of Giger. The only other explanation I can muster for this gross display is maybe some form of egg sac or ovipositor, similar to what was used by the Queen in Aliens for laying eggs. But again, those eggs all developed facehuggers, so why are we seeing a creature so already far in development? Hey guys, maybe this is our Queen, or something else unique within the species. There are absolutely a lot of cool things to analyse in this trailer, most of which right now I don't have answers for. No gravity and floating towards acid blood must be a horrible way to die, so I do appreciate this idea. Many scenes from this film do spell great tension, it would seem. Then lastly, the end shot makes a great poster, but assuming that Rain is the main character, and unless Romulus is going to surprise us all, then I would expect her to survive. Therefore, sorry to say, but this shot doesn't carry much weight for me, as all I'm able to think is, well, how does she escape this situation? And how would you? Not to be negative, but it's a gimmick that has been used far too many times since Alien 3, in my opinion, for it to be remotely effective these days. Well, there we go. That was the Alien Romulus trailer, and I guess I have some final thoughts that are more positive than some of my previous videos. It is, however, important to reiterate, especially after having watched the trailer now, that I still do not know if the cast performances are going to pull me out of this film in moments, as nothing about them in the trailer captivated me to the level of the earlier films. But at the same time, nothing gave me any major concern either, well, apart from that dialogue in the water scene. While on the subject of the cast, I will say this. I hope that, in the same vein as the first film, it will be a surprise who the hero is, as I don't want to feel I know who's going to die and who will survive at the beginning of the movie. Alien was phenomenal at subverting audience expectations and very effective at derailing any assumptions regarding who was going to lead, take charge and ultimately survive. Ripley was never made out to be special from the start. Later in the film she did assert her authority and take on a leadership role because she was an effective survivor. Not because the studio said we need a strong woman to kick some butt, believing that's what the audience was desperate for. So it's got to feel organic, otherwise it won't work. What I did take away from the trailer that I can revel in delight with is you can visibly see how hard at work the special effects team have been with the much anticipated practical effects. Honestly, nothing looked remotely watered down or ridiculous as most horror pictures are guilty of, frankly. Alien Covenant had its fair share of awkward CGI Xenos near the end of the film, but Romulus looks great in various degrees of lighting, just from the trailer at least. Whether it's dark or well lit, the creature effects were on point, with everything I was hoping for. It also appears we're going to have a few surprises and many Easter eggs, judging from all the elements of the trailer I cannot explain yet. But then again, do I really want to know? Isn't it better to go in relatively blind and enjoy the experience like a true moviegoer? I'm hardly convinced this film is going to be top tier, but I'll admit I'm much more looking forward to it now and have a bit more faith that it might possibly shock and scare me somewhat. I'll have more to say on the film over the coming weeks, no doubt, as I dissect elements in the trailer even further, but I would love to discuss with you horror fans in the comments below how you interpreted the trailer and if it has changed your mind, or maybe you were always hyped for this film. Let me know down below, and in the meantime, you know the drill, Marines. Stay entertained. See you soon.